Bound to the Billionaire by the Queen of Hearts. Chapter 1. Mia Hartwell had long stopped measuring her life in years or seasons. Instead, her days were counted in coffee cups poured, orders shouted over the hiss of steaming milk, and the aching steps between the cafe counter and the next customer. She's 27, though sometimes her reflection in the bathroom mirror at 1 a.m., after her second shift at the bookstore, made her look older. Not from age, but from exhaustion. She had no choice. Every cent mattered. Her mother's medical bills arrived like clockwork, each one a reminder that life didn't pause for grief or mercy. The latest one sat folded in her bag, unopened since she knew what it would say: more charges, more debt. The treatments were working slowly, but the costs climbed faster than her paychecks ever could. Mornings were spent in the cafe, wearing a green apron that smelled permanently of coffee beans and cinnamon. Afternoons bled into evenings in the dusty, quiet aisles of Thompson's Books, where she stocked shelves and rang up purchases for customers who barely looked her in the eye. Somewhere between the two jobs, she snatched lukewarm meals, the occasional bus ride nap, and a handful of deep breaths. Her friends, or the women she once thought of as friends, didn't understand. They teased her for working too much, calling her the girl who will end up alone with her cat. At first she'd laughed along, but the joke had worn thin. Behind their smiles, she caught the glances they exchanged, the way their conversations shifted when she walked in. Eventually, she stopped showing up to brunches she couldn't afford anyway. Dating? She hadn't had the time or energy in years. She had become immune to the flicker of pity on a man's face when she explained her schedule, the way it shut down any flirtation before it began. It didn't matter. Romance was a luxury she couldn't budget for. Still, in her quieter moments, Mia sometimes wondered what it would feel like to wake up without the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. What it would be like to be carefree again, to laugh without calculating how many minutes she had before she needed to be somewhere else. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to collide, quite literally, with a man whose world operated on a different currency altogether. And the first step toward that collision would come on the night she wore the thrift store dress that changed everything. Chapter 2. Mia still couldn't believe she said yes to Carla's last-minute text that morning. Triple pay, her friend had promised, plus all the leftover canapes you can eat. But nothing could have prepared her for what awaited her at the Blackwood estate. The mansion rose from the manicured grounds, like something plucked from a period drama. Sweeping marble staircases, arching windows spilling golden light, and fountains so elaborate they could have been stolen from a palace in Rome. A valet in white gloves had opened the front door for them, and for a fleeting second, Mia wondered if she should have curtsied. Inside, the opulence was suffocating. Crystal chandeliers cascaded overhead like frozen waterfalls, bathing the room in a warm, honeyed glow. A string quartet played in the corner, their polished instruments gleaming. Servers, actual professionals in crisp black uniforms, not temps like her, floated between guests in glittering gowns and tuxedos, balancing silver trays of champagne flutes that caught the light like liquid gold. "This is ridiculous," Carla muttered as they navigated the sea of wealth. "That woman's necklace could pay my rent for the next 5 years. Mia smirked. 5? Try 10, and I think I just saw a guy wearing a watch worth more than my car." "You don't have a car." "Exactly my point." She was still laughing when she turned, and crashed straight into someone. Champagne sloshed, icy drops soaking into a suit so perfectly tailored it could have been sewn onto the man's frame. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she blurted, mortification heating her cheeks. The man, tall, broad-shouldered, his features cut sharp enough to be dangerous, glanced down at her with cool amusement. "It's fine," he said, voice deep, measured. "No harm done." He handed the empty glass to a passing server and strode away before she could even process the strange electricity that had buzzed through the brief contact. "Who was that?" Carla hissed. Watching him disappear into the crowd, Mia shrugged. Someone important enough not to care about being doused in champagne. They carried on with their shift, weaving through the crowd, until Mia was sent to deliver a tray of petit four to the West Garden, a side area done up like something out of a storybook. Fairy lights twinkled between trees, and balloon animals bobbed in the soft night air. A few children darted about under the watchful eyes of their nannies. It was here she noticed them, 3 men in black suits that didn't quite match the uniform of the other servers. No trays, no back and forth to the kitchen, just standing, scanning. Their eyes landed on a little girl in a pale blue dress, her dark curls bouncing as she wandered toward the hedge. Something about it set her on edge. She'd worked enough events to know the rhythm of staff. These men were out of step. As she rounded the fountain, one of them placed a hand on the girl's shoulder and began steering her toward the far gate, a discreet service exit half hidden by a trellis. Mia's pulse spiked. Without thinking, she strode forward, her voice bright and falsely casual. "There you are. Your mum's looking for you." She reached for the girl's hand. The man's grip tightened. His companion moved to block Mia's path, his smile thin and wrong. "We've got it handled," he said low. "Funny," Mia shot back, her voice sharp now, "because I don't think you do." In the next second, everything happened at once. The girl tried to pull free. The first man yanked her forward, and Mia shoved her behind her own body. Pain exploded in her ribs as the second man slammed an elbow into her side. Her breath hitched, but she held on. The crash of falling glass and a startled scream from a nearby guest cut through the night. Security came charging, shouting orders. One man was tackled to the ground. The other 2 scattered into the dark. The girl was swept away by a woman in a glittering gown before Mia could even check if she was hurt. Her vision swam. She was dimly aware of someone crouching in front of her. The same man she'd spilled champagne on earlier. "You're hurt," he said, his tone clipped but urgent now. "Come with me." She wanted to protest. She was fine, just winded, but he was already signaling to a sharply dressed man nearby. "Carson, have the car brought around, and call ahead to the hospital." Before she knew it, Mia was being guided out through the grand foyer, past startled guests and the blinding chandeliers, into the cool night air where a sleek black car waited. It wasn't until she was settled into the plush leather seat, the city lights beginning to blur past, that she realized she had no idea who this man was, or why he seemed so personally invested in making sure she was okay. The ride to the hospital was almost dreamlike. Leather seats beneath her, city lights streaking past, the deep throb in her ribs reminding her it was all too real. She tried to focus, but the adrenaline was wearing off, leaving only pain and exhaustion. Ethan sat beside her in silence, his sharp profile lit by the glow of passing street lamps. When she shifted in her seat and winced, he finally said, his tone calm but firm, "Don't move too much. We'll be there soon." At the private clinic, the doctor confirmed she'd taken a hard blow to the ribs. No fractures, just deep bruising. Relief mixed with soreness as she sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the paper bag of ointment and painkillers they'd given her. When she looked up, Ethan was gone. In his place stood a man she vaguely recognized from the gala, impeccably dressed, with a Bluetooth earpiece and an expression that left no room for argument. "I'm Carson," he said smoothly. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to take you home." Too tired to protest, she let him guide her back to the waiting black car. As the city blurred past, she couldn't shake the strange mix of gratitude and curiosity, or the fact that the Ethan Blackwood had vanished from her night as abruptly as he'd entered it. Chapter 3. Mia woke to the low hum of traffic outside her window and the dull ache blooming across her ribs. By morning, the bruise had spread, deep purples and fading yellows painting her skin like spilled ink. Pulling herself upright felt like peeling away from glue. Every movement reminded her of the man's elbow slamming into her side. She checked her phone. No missed calls, no news alerts, no whispers of a scandal at the Blackwood Gala. If not for the bruise, she might have wondered if she'd dreamt it all. By noon, a text from Carla flashed across her screen. "Carla, you okay? You disappeared on me." And don't think I didn't see that tall guy with the tux and the stormy eyes. Mia smiled faintly, but she didn't take the bait. Mia, I'm fine, just tired. And that was it. No details, no gossip. She wasn't about to start weaving Ethan Blackwood into her life. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. A courier in a pressed black uniform stood on her step, expression unreadable as he handed over a sleek envelope. Inside was a folded note, Ethan's handwriting neat and deliberate. Thank you for everything. Beneath it lay a platinum credit card, her name already engraved. Mia stared at it for a long moment. Of course, a rich man's solution. Throw money at the problem until it disappears. She slid the card into her desk drawer and shut it without a second thought. She didn't call him, didn't text. She wasn't about to orbit the Blackwood wealth like everyone else. Across town, iron gates whispered open to admit a black car onto the Blackwood estate. Ethan stepped out, the mansion's symmetry and scale rising like a cathedral of family expectation. The dining room, as always, gleamed with formality, chandeliers spilling light over an endless table, silver cutlery aligned in perfect order. Vivienne Blackwood presided at the center, elegance carved into every gesture. Adrian, Ethan's older brother, lounged at the opposite end. His daughter Lily perched happily beside him, swinging her legs and nibbling on breadsticks. I hear the gala was eventful, Vivienne said, her tone smooth but laced with curiosity. Ethan took a measured sip of wine. It was handled. Adrian arched a brow. Handled by that mystery woman Carson mentioned? The one who acted before you did? A faint smile tugged at Ethan's mouth. She was effective. Vivian's gaze sharpened. And you thanked her? I sent her something, Ethan said casually, though his eyes flickered. She hasn't touched it. That earned a pause. In their world, a Blackwood gift wasn't ignored. Adrian let out a low chuckle. Either she's got principles, or she's smarter than most people you deal with. Vivienne set her glass down with precision. Speaking of principles, the board meeting is next week. The terms of your father's will stand. Both my sons running the company. Both my sons married. Adrian smirked. Lucky for me, I already ticked that box. Vivienne's gaze turned cold. 3 months, Ethan. Fail, and the board strips your seat and your stake. The words hung over the table like a storm cloud. Ethan leaned back, outwardly calm, but the weight pressed at him. Marriage was business, not desire. A week slipped by. Late one evening, Ethan sat alone in his study, the fire throwing amber light against the glass of bourbon in his hand. He pulled up his accounts. The platinum card he'd sent Mia remained untouched. No hotel charges, no shopping, not even a grocery run. In his world, people couldn't resist free money, but she had. He thought of her at the gala, quick, fearless, shielding a child without hesitation, walking away without asking for anything in return. She hadn't flinched in the chaos. She hadn't called after. She didn't need him. And that was when the idea took shape, sharp and certain. Mia Hartwell. She wasn't impressed by his wealth. She wasn't angling for favors, and because of that, she would be believable. The perfect fake fiancé. A slow, dangerous smile curved his lips. Carson appeared in the doorway, catching the expression. You've got that look, Carson said evenly. Ethan's eyes glinted. I know exactly who's going to help me. Across town, Mia ignored an unknown number buzzing on her phone, setting it face down beside her coffee. She had no idea that her silence had just made her the center of Ethan Blackwood's next scheme. Chapter 4. The study was silent except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock against the wall. Ethan sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled to the elbow, the dim light of the lamp painting sharp shadows across his face. Carson stood a few feet away, manila folder in hand. You wanted me to run the check, Carson said. Here it is. Mia Hartwell. Ethan gestured with 2 fingers. Go ahead. Carson flipped the file open. 25. Works 2 jobs. Morning shifts at a cafe on the east side. Evenings at Thompson's bookstore downtown. No boyfriend, no notable social life, no history of arrests, lawsuits, or even speeding tickets. She's clean. Finances. Ethan's voice was clipped, businesslike. Minimal savings. She's juggling medical bills for her mother, heart condition, hospitalizations, prescriptions, specialists. She's never missed a payment, though she's close to the edge. No frivolous spending. Rent's paid on time. Utilities steady. If anything, she's over-responsible. Carson hesitated, then added, she doesn't owe anyone but the hospital. And even that, she's paying bit by bit. No signs of bad debt, no gambling, no splurges. She works, she pays, she repeats. Ethan leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. His eyes narrowed, thoughtful. So she's disciplined. Carson's mouth tugged sideways. Disciplined and proud. She's turned down offers for help before. Stubborn, maybe. A faint curve ghosted Ethan's lips. Perfect. For a long moment, he studied the photo clipped to the file. Mia, hair swept into a messy bun, apron dusted with flour, caught in the candid snap from the cafe. Ordinary clothes, clear eyes, not a trace of artifice, not dazzled by wealth, not begging for rescue, exactly what he needed. Mia balanced a tray of mugs at the cafe, exhaustion tugging at her bones. Another 12-hour day blurred behind her, another bill sitting heavy in her bag, one she hadn't dared open yet. Carla teased her from behind the counter about stormy eyes guy, but Mia brushed it off with a weak smile. She couldn't afford distractions, which was why her pulse stumbled when Carson appeared by the door, immaculate in a suit that made the shabby cafe seem laughable. Customers whispered. Baristas exchanged wide-eyed looks. Mia Hartwell, Carson said politely, ignoring the stares. Mr. Blackwood requests your company, tonight. I'm working. She set the tray down harder than intended. Carson's tone didn't waver. He insists. I'll wait. The weight of everyone's eyes pressed in until she sighed, tugged off her apron and muttered, fine, but just for 5 minutes. The Blackwood estate loomed like something out of another world, all stone and steel under the night sky. Carson led her through the echoing halls until the study doors swung open. Ethan was waiting. He didn't rise. He didn't smile. He simply gestured toward the chair opposite his desk, as though this were a negotiation, not a meeting. You've been busy, Miss Hartwell, he began, voice smooth, unreadable. 2 jobs, a sick mother. You keep your head down, you pay your debts. Admirable. Mia's stomach tightened. You looked into me? He didn't deny it. I don't make offers blindly. She folded her arms, chin lifting. Then whatever you're about to say, the answer is no. Ethan leaned forward, eyes catching hers, dark, sharp, commanding. My father's will requires me to marry within 3 months. If I don't, I lose my stake in Blackwood Enterprises. I'm not interested in society's vultures or gold diggers, which brings me to you. Her laugh was sharp, disbelieving. You can't be serious. Perfectly serious. He slid a document across the desk. A marriage. In name only. You get financial security, your mother's medical bills. Gone. I get compliance with my father's terms. Clean. Simple. Mia stared at the paper but didn't touch it. Heat rose in her cheeks. You think I'd sell myself to you, like some whore? No, Ethan said evenly. You're pragmatic, and I'm not offering you myself. I'm offering your mother a chance she doesn't have otherwise. Her chest ached at the mention of her mother. She shoved back her chair, anger warring with something colder, heavier. You're insane. She stormed out before he could reply. That night, alone in her tiny apartment, Mia unfolded the latest bill. Numbers swam before her eyes, cruel in their finality. She pressed a hand to her mouth, tears threatening. For the first time, Ethan Blackwood's offer didn't seem like madness. It seemed like the only way out. Back at the estate, Carson poured Ethan a drink. Do you think she'll agree? Ethan swirled the amber liquid, gaze distant. She'll come around, they always do. A pause, his mouth curved, not in triumph, but in something colder. "The difference is," he murmured, "she won't be doing it for me. She'll be doing it for her mother." Chapter 5. The morning after Ethan's proposition, Mia woke with a knot in her chest and Carla's voice in her ear. "Please tell me you're kidding," Carla said, dropping onto the edge of Mia's couch with a bag of pastries that smelled like heaven and regret. "A billionaire asked you to marry him and you stormed out? Babe?" "We practice saying yes to that kind of thing." Mia groaned into her pillow. "It wasn't a proposal, it was a transaction." "Same thing, only one comes with a prenup." Carla bit into a croissant, flakes tumbling down her shirt. "You know, most girls dream of fake marrying a billionaire. You're out here rejecting the plot of every good Netflix series." Mia peeked out from under the blanket, hair a mess. "You're impossible." "Impossible. Number. Realistic." Very Carla leaned forward, tone softening. "Look, I know your pride's bigger than my student loan, but if this guy's offering to pay your mom's bills, maybe just hear him out. You can't pour from an empty wallet." Mia managed a weak laugh. "You're allergic to good advice, you know that?" "Please, I'm allergic to bad luck." "You're allergic to good luck. It's why we're friends. We balance out." They both laughed, the sound filling the tiny apartment until it almost felt like everything might be okay again. But it wasn't. By afternoon, Mia was back at the bookstore, pretending to organize the romance shelf, while her thoughts looped in restless circles. The man was infuriating. Arrogant, controlling, unreadable. And yet his words had sunk into her like a splinter she couldn't dig out. "I'm offering your mother a chance she doesn't have otherwise." The memory made her chest tighten. She tried to focus on stacking books, but her hands betrayed her, trembling just enough for a hard cover to slip. It hit the floor with a thud. "Careful," came a familiar voice. Smooth, steady, unmistakable. Her head snapped up. Ethan stood in the aisle, dressed down for once. No tie, sleeves rolled to the elbow, a hint of disarming ease that didn't match the precision she remembered. Her heart gave a traitorous jump. "What are you doing here?" she asked, bending to pick up the book. He crouched at the same time, their hands brushing. The contact was brief, but it set her pulse racing. The world seemed to narrow to that single touch. The warmth of his skin, the quiet power in the space between them. Ethan smiled faintly. "I thought I'd try a different approach." "You stormed out before I could finish explaining." Mia straightened, crossing her arms. "You mean before you could finish insulting me?" "Offering you an opportunity," he corrected. "There's a difference." She scoffed. "You have a strange way of doing it." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, her glare sharp, his calm almost infuriating. Then, as if fate wanted to humiliate her, she stepped back, tripped over a stack of unshelved paperbacks, and stumbled. Ethan caught her before she fell. His arm came around her waist, solid and sure, pulling her against him. The world froze. Her breath caught, his cologne clean and dark, his heartbeat steady against her side. "Got you," he murmured. Her cheeks burned. She pushed gently away. "I'm fine." He didn't move, didn't smirk, just studied her, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't expect to enjoy this much. "Are you?" he asked quietly. Something in his tone, not arrogance this time, but genuine concern, unsettled her more than any flirtation could. "I don't need saving," she said finally. "I know," he replied. "That's what makes you different." The words lingered long after he turned and left, his footsteps echoing between the shelves. Mia stood there, pulse hammering, her hands still tingling from where he'd touched her. She told herself it was anger. It wasn't. That night she couldn't sleep. The memory of the bookstore replayed in flashes. The heat of his gaze, the low murmur of his voice, the quiet steadiness that felt too close, too safe. She hated how her mind wandered. To his hands, his eyes, the way he'd said, "Got you like a promise." Carla's voice buzzed through her phone. "Tell me you didn't dream about him." Mia typed back, "Of course not," then deleted it, too embarrassed by the lie. She was still staring at the ceiling when her phone rang again. This time, Not Carla. Mia Hartwell, the voice was low, professional. This is Dr. Lane from Lakeside Hospital. I'm calling about your mother. Her throat went dry. What happened? There's been a setback. A secondary bleed from her earlier condition. We've stabilized her for now, but we need to perform a minimally invasive decompression to prevent pressure on the brainstem. The words came in sharp clinical bursts. Bleed, pressure, risk. And all she could think of was her mother's smile, fading these last months into something weaker, thinner. Mia's voice trembled. What do you need from me? The deposit, the doctor said gently. The insurance covers most of it, but we'll need $15,000 to move forward tonight. $15,000. The number landed like a stone in her stomach. She thanked the doctor, promised to come by, and hung up. Then just sat there in the dark, the silence pressing against her ribs until she could barely breathe. $15,000. She checked her accounts. $211 and a handful of cents. Rent due in 4 days. Her vision blurred. Carla's words came back to her like an echo. Maybe just hear him out. With trembling hands, Mia reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over his name, the man she'd sworn she'd never call. Finally, she typed, Mia, I need to see you. Ethan was in his study when the message arrived, a single vibration cutting through the quiet. He saw her name and felt that same flicker of satisfaction he hadn't expected to care about. He set down his glass, unreadable smile curving at the corner of his mouth. He'd told Carson she would come around. He hadn't said how much he wanted to be wrong. Chapter 6. The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. Mia rushed through the doors of Lakeside Hospital, half-dressed, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The call from Dr. Lane still echoed in her mind. Secondary bleed, brainstem pressure. $15,000. She spotted him near the nurse's station, his face grave but calm. She's stable for now, Dr. Lane said, but we can't wait much longer. We need to drain the pressure. If we delay... He didn't need to finish. Mia's breath came in short, ragged bursts. Do it. Please, I'll find the money. The nurse behind the desk gave her a sympathetic look that only made it worse. I'm sorry, Miss Hartwell, but the deposit has to clear before the procedure. Mia's chest tightened. You don't understand, my mother. Hospital policy, the woman said softly. Her knees wobbled. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. The world around her blurred into motion, doctors moving, machines beeping, voices echoing down long white halls. 15,000. Her mind clawed for solutions, but all that came up was debt and desperation. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, where are you? She stared at the screen. She didn't even remember sending that message. Her thumb trembled before she typed back. Mia, Lakeside Hospital. 40 minutes later, the doors slid open again. Ethan walked in like he owned the place. Tall, precise, every step deliberate. Heads turned. Nurses stopped mid-sentence. Even in a hospital corridor, he looked like he'd stepped out of another world. He saw her instantly. Small, disheveled, pale. Without hesitation, he closed the distance between them. What's happening? Her voice cracked. They won't operate without a deposit. He didn't ask how much, didn't ask why. He just said quietly, stay here. Then he disappeared down the hall. Through the glass partition, Mia saw him speak to the billing officer, his tone calm but sharp, the kind of authority that made people listen. A few keystrokes later, the woman nodded quickly. Ethan signed something, handed over his card, and that was it. When he came back, he held out the receipt. You can hate me later. Right now, she needs this. Mia couldn't even find words. Her throat burned, eyes stinging. Why are you doing this? He looked at her for a long moment. Because I can. The hours crawled by like years. She sat outside the ICU, still in shock. Ethan stayed. He didn't try to talk. He didn't even look at her much. Just sat across the waiting room, scrolling through his phone, occasionally checking the clock. When Dr. Lane finally appeared,